Coming to you from the dining room table at East Barbary Lane, welcome to another special episode of Full Circle, the podcast. I am your host, Charles Tyson Jr. Martha is on special assignment somewhere in Diva Land, but that's okay because we have a wonderful guest with us today. Kathy Anderson is an award-winning novelist and short story author who has been lauded in both queer and quote-unquote mainstream literary circles. And she has a collection of short stories entitled Vamoose, which is a very interesting and cool read, and I cannot wait to speak to her about it. Kathy Anderson, welcome to the Full Circle table.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. So yeah, like I just said, the collection of short stories, Vamoose, it was, first of all, I love how Philly centric the pieces are, the stories are. You are from South Jersey, but you live in Philly. Is that how that works?
No, I live in Philly, originally I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh, okay.
But I worked in South Jersey, so I do have a lot of references. I have some references to that also in there.
Okay. I love it. I love it. So do you center a lot of your work in Philly, or were we just lucky with this book?
This is more of the first time that I wrote so much about Philly and included so many of the details and tried to pick up the very unique vibe that is Philly that many people have noticed. It's, they call it a gritty city. It's a very real city. It's full of neighborhoods, each of which are real different from each other. And I'm not sure exactly why all these details started to, take center stage in this book, but I'm really happy about it because I just love living here and I love trying to capture, what it is that's so special about Philly.
And there is so much special. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I lived there for 40 something years before moving to South Jersey. So I caught a lot of the little bits of flavor and I appreciated them. And I felt like even though you weren't always specific about the exact location that certain events were taking place in, I had the picture in my mind. I'm picturing, this mural on that corner.
Right. I think Philly is full of things like little cool alleyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I've been in a lot of other cities. I haven't noticed a lot of those kind of same details. So that's the kind of thing that I tried to put in the old streets, the old buildings, let alone the dialogue, the way people act. That is a whole nother thing.
Oh, yeah. And you do name check several different neighborhoods, like South Philly gets a shout out, Brewery Town, West Philly, Old City. So made me a little homesick. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So you seem to gravitate towards the short story. Why? Short stories are actually one of my favorite things to read. Part of it is because, they're a lot easier to digest. The author has to get in and make the point and get out. What makes you gravitate towards short stories?
When I started writing short stories, I felt like, and I still feel like, they are the hardest thing that I could possibly attempt to write. And when I think I got really hooked on it, when I actually felt like I pulled it off. So the first time you get to the end of a story, you feel like I did that. I actually wrote a short story. There's some kind of special thrill with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think because it's a very intense experience. To try to capture a character's whole life story, in essence, so that you know enough about them to know who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. You also have to have a plot. Something has to happen.
Right.
And so you have to have a setting. You have to have so many things to fall into like 10 pages or 12 pages. It's almost impossible when you really think about it. And it's very much for me, it is a feeling my way along kind of thing. So it
Mm,
taps into what I love about writing is that it comes from such a deep inner place. It's very intuitive. It's very just following my deepest instincts as opposed to my brain, which might be plotting something out in a longer piece.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I love. Like I said, you have to get in, make your point, and get out. And what that does a lot of times is the ending tends to pack a little bit more of a punch that way.
Exactly. And when you say get in, make your point, and get out, honestly, when I start something, I have a sense of what it might be about because maybe it's a very strong feeling that keeps me at it to figure out what is this story about. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know when I go in. So that's part of the joy of writing short stories to me is that you have that same discovery that a reader has. Like I'm discovering as I go along. Like I start the first story in the book with a photograph of 1989 Dallas Gay Pride. And from there,
Mm.
I say to myself, where is this going? And I don't know either. So it's kind
Right.
of, me figuring out what point I'm making. By the end, I figure it out, but I don't know as along the way.
I love it. And have you ever started a short story and halfway through wonder whether or not you want it to remain a short story? Like, I want to flesh this out a little bit more. I want to see where this person goes from here. Has that ever happened? Has it ever happened with this
Yes.
collection?
Not with that collection so much, but my novel is actually came about because these characters that it was about, it's called The Newtown Librarian, and it's about a librarian in South Jersey, a lesbian
Mm-hmm.
middle-aged librarian, as a matter of fact. I worked in South Jersey and I heard, these strong accents and dialogue and a whole
Mm-hmm.
culture of the Italian Americans in the town that I worked in. And so that stayed with me for so many years, I can't tell you. So, in other words, I knew there was a lot to those characters. I didn't know, again, what they were going to do, how would it all play out. But when I finally figured that out, they became a novel, that whole story, with two main characters.
Right. Okay. I described this book as not so much a collection of short stories, but a collection of the lives of complicated women.
Oh, that's so perfect. I totally endorse that.
Because whatever each story is about, ultimately, that's what it is. You know, someone dealing with their stubbornness or their grief or just their inability to like commit to a decision, you know?
Mhm.
And once I realized that that's what was going on, it made me look forward to, okay, what's going to be in this one? What's going to be in this one? Are your protagonists always women in your work?
No.
Okay.
But for this book, what I tried to do was I have many more short stories. And
Uh
so
huh.
when I'm looking to make a book, I think what goes together? Where is there a connecting part that, because you can't have a short story collection kind of jumping around in theme. It doesn't feel good as a reader. You kind of have to
Mm,
figure out some unity. And, there are 15 stories in the book, 15 very different women and very different situations, but the through lines are there for me, and that's how I put it together. And for me, the other thing that was really important is what you were describing is how they react to these situations that come along. And for me, there's a lot of humor in it because, it's very surprising what they choose to do when they're
mm,
confronted with something. And I think I use the word subversive a lot with this book. And I think that to me, that means They don't follow conventional expectations of what we think an old lesbian would act like or be like, or an old
Right.
woman would act like and be like. So that makes humor intrinsically because humor is often surprise. So if you're reading along and you are surprised, we tend to laugh.
Right. It's true. Um, so when you, I'm going to get into the actual stories, but I'm fascinated because again, I love short stories, and I get to sit and talk with someone who can answer my questions. So, like with this particular collection, when you sat down to write, were you intentionally writing stories for this collection, or did you have stories that you already had and you pulled them together because they fit the theme, or both?
Um, that's a great question. I actually it's the second response. I had all of these stories over probably 10 years
Hmm.
and was, knowing I wanted to have a second short story collection. I didn't have in mind that it would be about women. I didn't have in mind anything. I was just feeling my way toward what kind of would form together.
Hmm.
And it's an interesting thing. I think well, at least from what I know about writing and creativity, it's always about ourselves. We have to explore something. And
Mm-hmm.
as I'm getting older, the subject of older lesbians got more and more interesting to me. So
Right.
I was exploring it for myself as well. Like, what does it feel like to be this age and doing XYZ? So that kind of helped the book come together, I think.
So when I was reading the story She Squared,
Mm.
there was a line that I had to like get a sticky note and write a question. The line is, when I start to feel love, I immediately imagine its loss. And it hit me that that was kind of the overarching theme of each of the stories in some way or another. Like, was that deliberate, or did that just happen that way?
You are very astute to pick that up, and
Well, thank you.
it is not it was not deliberate, but one of the early reviewers used the word loss. I wouldn't have used that word. Like, I think there's this interesting thing. You write what you write, you make it as strong as you can, you love it, you love every word of it, and then other people kind of tell you what it's about because
Right.
you only have a limited amount that you can analyze of your own work. I think that's absolutely true. That line really is true of all of the stories, but it's not the kind of thing you can write to. You can know about yourself and write to. It's the kind
Right.
of thing that comes out as people respond to it.
Yeah, because and love means something different, and loss means something
Mhm.
different in each of these stories. Like, in one case it's an actual romantic relationship, in another one it's, the loss of a spouse. The story with the murderous nun, as it were, the loss of, the life that could have been, you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so many different colorful characters, and they're all after the same thing in one way or another. I will say the one story, I said the woman who is trying to survive losing her spouse. There was a character in that story that, like, I would love for you to explore further. The hospice
Oh,
nurse,
yeah, yeah.
because
That
I
story
just
was originally named "We Hate the Hospice Nurse." Which thank you for laughing. I found that idea very funny, but very true to life.
oh yeah,
Uh,
having had to experience a hospice nurse or two in my life, yeah, you
they're the
love them and
bearer
you
of
hate
bad
them.
news. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's all they are, really.
they're easy to blame in that scenario, but yeah,
Right. And it gives you some place to put those feelings.
yeah, which are huge.
Yeah. 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 Whether you can name those feelings or not. It gives you some
Mm-hmm.
place to put them. And yeah, and the more we learn about her,
Mm-hmm.
the more I was like, well, I want to follow her. What's her day to
Well, you know
day?
what's interesting to me about you bringing up that she's quite a minor character, really, in that story.
Right.
But and I needed to have that role in the story, but I didn't know who she was when I started it, and I didn't know what her deal was. So I started to think about, like, why is she so cold? Why is
Mm,
she so matter of fact? And and then the rest of what would make that make sense came along. Her and I won't say it just in case anybody is,
right.
spoiler alert, but,
Yeah, I was trying to be as vague as I could.
but I do love that thought of, like, a minor character can still play a powerful role and have a story that sticks with people if the details are right.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's my little personal request. Like,
Thank you. I
sequel
will keep
story
that in
about
mind.
her.
Uh,
I think my favorite story, the one that my brain keeps coming to when I think about this book, is the one about the former circus performer who,
yeah.
takes her stilt walk through South Philly. Because, like, I can picture that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've seen that in my lifetime.
You see everything. You see everything on Broad Street, don't you? Yeah.
Exactly. Especially like during fringe time. It's
Oh,
like that
yeah.
very well could be a thing that happens.
Right.
And that just felt like one of the most Philly things, one of the most South Philly things ever.
You know what else is South Philly about that story? The neighbor. Knowing,
Mm
watching.
hmm. Mm
I
hmm.
mean, not just South Philly, but Philly is neighborhoods. And I live in a row house block. And we all hear and see everything, front, back,
Mm hmm.
who's walking by. It is very close quarters, and people really do watch out for each other.
Mm hmm. Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, I lived most of my life in Philly. I lived in West Philly in a row
Uh-huh.
home. And it is very much that you, even if you live by yourself, you are not alone.
That's true. True.
And I hated that, but that's okay.
Uh,
What would you say is one of your favorite Philly moments in this book?
I love Geraldine, the older butch lesbian who has she's on a errand to go to the Italian deli that she loves, and
I do love that story.
she's clomping along in her work boots and her, mask clothing, and all of a sudden she feels pushed up against the wall on the street with, like, something's happening here, and all these Philly things start happening right in front of her. A guy
Mm-hmm.
throws up on the sidewalk. A bunch of kids go by on bikes doing the, wheelies and stopping traffic, and so on. So it's to me, like, everything in that whole scene I have witnessed, not all at once, but individually. So, I mean, it is
Yeah,
very interesting place to live. There's so much happening always.
there really is. And yeah, sometimes it is at the same time, and just sometimes it's just in rapid sequence.
Hmm.
And it's like, I just want to get to the bank.
Exactly.
Stop being colorful, damn
Oh, forget that.
it.
Oh.
Yeah, there were, like I said, there's a lot of complicated women
Mhm.
in these stories. And I think that is valuable for people to experience. Because I didn't really notice, let me think about this for a second. Yeah. I didn't really notice too many tropes like in
Mhm.
these stories, like, or obviously anyway, like each of these women were unique to themselves, to the
Mhm.
world they occupied, to the story that was being told. I can't say that I immediately, well, I've read this story. I know where this is going. I never had that. And what draws you to complicated women?
Well, number one, that is a huge compliment what you just said, and that is my highest goal in writing is to be true to the characters, let them really be their fullest self, and
Mm,
speak like they want to speak and act like they want to act, and not be conforming to some pattern. Like that to me feels like not right.
right.
So I forgot the question now because I got derailed. Say the end part again.
What draws you to complicated
Oh,
women?
well, I think complicated women on the page like that are very much like the women I know in real life.
Hmm.
I'm not saying these are modeled on real women. I'm saying
God help you if they are.
I'm saying like I think that I can identify the realness of a person in real life, the genuine
Mm,
self, as opposed to someone who's trying to act like whatever. And
hmm.
so that's kind of what I try to capture is the real experience. And what I hope that readers find is like it's a lot of fun to hang out with these older women on the
Hmm.
page because they are really themselves. And that is like the best conversation you ever have, or the best party you ever have, is being around people who are just real, just being
Hmm.
themselves. So I'm very drawn to that. And if I can ever write dialogue where it has happened to me where somebody says, "You absolutely captured my grandmother in the flesh." I've never met his grandmother, right? But if somebody says that to me, I know I got it right.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed is like those are the kind of women that we have in our life in real life,
Yeah.
and it's that idea of like not being concerned, with the exception of one story where that was the actual point of the story, not being concerned about how they are perceived by other people, not being concerned with being digestible to other
Mhm.
people. You know, this is me, this is who I am, and you're going to take it or you're going to leave it. And either way, I don't care.
And that is the beauty of getting to an older age. And I think that's a pretty universal sentiment that everyone who gets to be at a certain point in life, especially for women who they have so many more expectations laid on us all along the
Mm-hmm.
way. When you
Mm-hmm.
get to the point where you really know that you are done with all that, it's
Yeah.
very freeing and it's actually very fun.
I can but imagine. Because I'm just getting to a place where I am releasing a lot of that pressure on myself to conform to, you know, what is considered an acceptable human. But then I'm also not existing with the societal pressures that are put on being a woman. So I can but
Mhm.
imagine. One of my favorite phrases of late is dangerous woman. Martha spoke at a pride event last year and the protesters were trying to drown her out. It didn't work. And they referred to her as a dangerous woman. And, you know, my favorite thing was, well, you say that like that's a bad thing.
That's so perfect.
And
Uh,
I feel like a lot of the women in this book could be categorized that way. A dangerous woman. You know, you speak your mind, and your opinion is not going to change based on who you're speaking to. If your feelings get hurt, okay, that wasn't my goal, but I'm not going to lose sleep over
yeah.
it. I
It's very
love that.
powerful just to be yourself. It really is
Yeah.
a very powerful.
Authenticity is my favorite flavor. Do you have? I know it's like asking you to choose between your kids, but do you have a favorite story in this book?
I'm not going to use that word because they are
Fair,
all my beloved children. But
right?
one that was quite an incredible experience to write was the opening story, which covers a very long friendship, a platonic friendship between two lesbians through
Hmm.
their whole lives, through lots of points of history. And
I
it
like that one.
is special to me because Um, it took a really long time to write and get it right,
Mm.
it took a really long time to live parts of it. It's a lot of that book, a lot of that story relates to my own experience. It is not autobiographical per se. So, it's again that feeling of when you really want something to be in the world, it should be in the world, and it's still so hard to get there. You
Yeah.
pick it up, put it down over the years, and then when it finally came out in a form and a format, that was the hard thing for me. How am I going to format a story this long? So I figured out one day that it worked beautifully if I told the story through photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the piece that had to fall into place. And so I think when you really work hard for something and love it very much, that makes it very special.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. That story in particular, that was it's the first one in the book.
Hmm.
And so it was setting the tone for me. And I found myself identifying with one character and wanting to shake the other one.
Hmm.
It's like, would you relax, lady? Damn.
And that is friendship. It's so
Eh,
strange, isn't it? How you can be lifelong friends with someone the exact opposite of you. And in fact, maybe the universe put you together to learn from each other.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I noticed with my own best friends circle, and that circle is tight now. As you get older, you
Hmm.
shed the extra.
Hmm.
The ones who are our closest, we love them and we hate them sometimes for the exact same reasons.
You've caught it exactly. It's because they're family. It's just like
Right.
family. We
Mm-hmm.
also we know each other so well. Can you know someone too well? Maybe.
Mm, maybe.
But yet friendship is often the most enduring relationship of our lives. So I really, really am thrilled to honor that.
Yeah, and not every character in the book is queer, but there is a lot of queerness throughout these stories. Actually, there was some queerness in the stories where the characters themselves were not actually queer. Like, if you ask the characters, they probably wouldn't know that, but I know what I'm looking at. And I forget why I brought that up, other than the fact that, I appreciate, I appreciate that theme always. You mentioned, specifically with that first story that it was not autobiographical, but how much of your own life is in any of these stories, if any?
Well, the elements of life often are like story starters. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, with that first story, it's about two lesbian librarians. I was a lesbian librarian. So some of the basic like starting points are there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the time frame is accurate to my own time frame when I came out, when I became active, an activist in the queer librarianship movement, and that kind of thing. So there definitely are elements. But many of the other stories, I would say, there's a quality of detachment. Like somebody told me a story, or I was in a restaurant and I overheard something that started a story. So it can be
Mm-hmm.
it's a very mysterious process to me how things start. And I think it's very hard to, accurately describe uh, where a story comes from and where it goes.
Right.
So that's what makes it such a beautiful form to work in to me, that I get to have like that discovery experience as I go along, and it teaches me something and it helps me see maybe some of my own stumbling blocks in life, or what do I need to learn. So it's a very big experience to write just any short story.
Mm-hmm. I was sitting here, you mentioned queer librarian movement community. I was sitting here and I was thinking, because we know several librarians, and it just occurred to me, I don't think I've ever met a librarian that wasn't queer.
There you go. Oh, that's so cool. Well, here's the thing.
I'm trying to
Librarian
think and I can't.
the real one of the real influencers of that, the American Library Association was the first professional association to have a gay and lesbian task force. That's what they called it back then.
Mm,
Back in the 70s, it was before doctors, before psychologists, before lawyers had their own gay caucuses within their professional association. The librarians
hmm
led the way. So
Which
I
makes
know
sense.
I became a yes, because it has to do with access to books and so on. And they
Hmm
actually had a big influence on the publishing industry because if a librarian organization puts a stamp of approval on a book and
Right.
says this belongs in public libraries, then the publishers are more likely to print it and make it accessible. So
Right.
I'm really happy that in my life I was able to be involved with that whole group, and they are the most fun parties you will ever go to in your life. Is the
I
queer
bet.
the queer caucuses at the
Um,
annual conventions.
yeah. I mean, that makes sense that librarians would have that strong of an influence on the publishing industry because you literally have your finger on the pulse of what the community is reading and
Yes,
what the
and what
tastes are.
what allies need as well. So like
Right.
when things became more people were coming out in their personal lives, parents would show up and say, where is a book that someone who that I can talk to my son about this or my daughter about this? They wanted to be informed as an ally as well. So I mean, it really had a huge impact and continues to.
Yeah. And, and going back to the wild parties, I can but imagine because every librarian that I know, and I suspect this is just across the board, as buttoned up as y'all might appear when you're on the clock, I happen to know firsthand once you're off work, y'all are crazy.
My lips are sealed, but you're right. Oh.
And names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Oh.
So here's a question for you. We have this crazy time we're living in, which is reminiscent of another crazy time where there is this battle against information, and libraries specifically are being targeted, books are being targeted. How have you been dealing with that? Because,
Mhm.
ugh.
Well, I should say I no longer am a librarian, so I'm not
Right.
actively day to day dealing. But
But
here's a
still,
cool thing that makes it different from the previous book banning bad eras.
right.
Very different. Now there's technology. And so what happens is you have things like the Queer Liberation Library is a free online library. It comes through Libby, which is the library app that all libraries have.
Uh huh.
So if you look for Queer Liberation Library and
Mm-hmm.
put in, you don't even have to have a library card. You would not believe the amazing queer library for free online that people have access to. So what I picture is some kid, a teenager out in a rural area in a
Mm-hmm.
conservative area. And guess what? They can get the books that they want privately on their phone or their e-reader. So
Mm-hmm.
that we did not have back in previous times. So I take great joy and great hope in these kind of responses to what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and also knowing the pendulum swings, and it's certainly is going to swing back.
Yeah. I am very much a fan of Libby. I that's one of the best inventions man hath brought.
Absolutely, totally.
And Martha and I have talked about on the show when we talk about the crazy book bannings and things like that. And I've
Hmm.
said directly to our listeners, you know what you shouldn't do? you should not download the Libby app and put in put in your library card and have access to all of these books in e-form. And if you live in a rural area and there's certain things that you want that your library doesn't, what else you shouldn't do? You shouldn't make friends on the internet with people who live in major metropolitan areas and borrow their library card number.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
You absolutely should. That would be bad if you did that.
No, this is really strong, and it's a powerful thing that we can do. Spread that message just to get through this bad time. Yeah, we shouldn't have to, but thank God we have it.
Right. And what these fools don't recognize is the more you try to say this book is bad, this book is dangerous, the more you're making people want to read that book.
Absolutely.
And, like we said, with Libby and various other avenues, like, it has never been easier to get your hands on this information, and you should also not visit thriftbooks.com where you can get books at a much cheaper, you can get used books at a much cheaper price. That would also be bad. With the internet, it's never been easier to get your hands on the information that you want.
Absolutely true. And that gives us hope. We can get through this with all of these things that come with this time as well. So bad things are at this time, but also all these cool, good things are happening too.
Right. And that is, ultimately, besides highlighting queer voices and artists, we talk about the news that affects the LGBTQ community. And, especially in the present moment, a lot of it is horrific and a lot of it is, will keep you up at night. But what we try to do is focus on the responses, because that's where the good shit is, with the way people respond to these problems. And a lot of the ways are so creative and clever, and that's what gives you hope, especially with the young folks. Like, they will find a way that, even my subversive self, who, I had my time in the 90s where, we made some noise. They come up with things, and I'm like, I would not have thouut of that. Bravo to you, young man,
genius.
Young lady.
It's true. Genius, a lot of it.
And that's what we gotta hold on to, the fact that this moment will pass. It cannot last forever.
Yes,
it is not sustainable, and it's just the dying gasp of the old way.
It's absolutely true. I totally am with you on that.
And they know it. That's why they're fighting so damn hard.
It's true.
And that's why I love the ability to have information at your fingertips. I love that that authors are still creating wonderful new works, wonderful ideas. So, on behalf of all of the idea makers and disseminators, I want to thank you personally.
Oh, what a lovely thing to say. I really appreciate that.
So the collection of short stories is called Vamoose. It is a wonderful read. It will take you on many little rides. Some of them you'll be smiling, some of them you'll be crying, some one then the other, but I definitely recommend. Kathy, what is your favorite way to tell people to get your books?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there are so many ways to get it. It is on all the usual online booksellers, but my publisher happens to be a female-owned independent publisher with their own shop as well. So people can get it however they like. Feel free. But if anyone's interested in supporting this wonderful female-owned press, it is Vine Leaves Press.
Vine Leaves Press. I love it. And if we wanted to learn more about you, Kathy, where could we go?
Well, probably the best place to start is KathyAndersonWriter.com. And there are some short stories on my website that were published in literary magazines, links to other things. So there's some additional things to read if anyone's interested.
I love it. So, what is the takeaway that you would love people to have from not just Vamoose, but your work in general? Like, if we were to distill your style, let's say, what would you like that to be?
I would like it to be two words: humor and hope. Humor, because I think it's just a basic human thing that we really need right now. We need to
Mm,
bring that to all of our, as much as possible, into our lives, because it's a real act of resistance to find the humor in life. And
yes,
hope,
indeed.
because I just feel the worst thing any of us can do is get cynical and hopeless right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe very much in hope and looking for hopeful things, and that those are the two things that I would love for people to find in my writing.
Yes, and hope it is also an act of resistance, and I love that.
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had as good of a time as I did.
It was wonderful. What a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you have been listening to Full Circle, the podcast. And Kathy, I have the feeling that this is not the last time we're going to sit and chat together.
Well, that would be great. I look forward to.
Thank you so much, and you have a great day.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Full Circle is a Never Scared Productions podcast, hosted by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, produced and edited by Never Scared, executive produced by Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal. Our theme and music is by the Jingleberries. All names, pictures, music, audio, and video clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of their respective copyright holders.